Welcome to the third class of the Art and Soul series. Tonight the focus is on the art of literature or storytelling. As you know, I think most of you have been here for the past classes. Every lesson we focus on another one of the art forms and we examine it, we explore it in the context of Jewish teachings and the relevance that it has to our daily lives. So tonight we will be doing that with literature, with storytelling. What is a story? What is a story?
Something that happens.
An event, something that happens. Facts. Okay.
Yeah, that's true too, Barb. Barb was whispering a mindset.
A mindset. Okay.
A mindset.
Oh, a mindset.
Like sometimes
A mindset.
it could
Yes.
Something
Yes.
you're telling yourself that's not true.
Like a baba mindset.
A baba mindset.
Yes, sometimes there's a lot of imagination involved in our stories, and we will discuss that tonight. That's a good point. Yes. Okay, so that's what we're going to be exploring. And we're going to begin our exploration of this, of what is a story, through a workshop, a storytelling workshop. Okay, so I am going to hand each of you an envelope that contains 9 picture cards. Each one is numbered. Okay, each envelope has the same cards, but not necessarily the same order. Okay, pass this down.
Smart.
Now we are.
One for you, one for you.
Let's divide up into 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we have lots. To 2 groups. So we'll do 3 and 3. Okay. Okay. So, Barbara, maybe just for this workshop, I'll ask you to come to this side. Just for the workshop, we'll divide it into 2 groups, even groups. Oh, well, maybe not so even. Okay, you might as well stay there. Carolyn can join this side. It doesn't matter. Okay, so what I'm going to have you ladies do in this workshop, you know what, in that case, let's divide into groups of 2. It's still not going to work anyways. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's
It's not hot yet.
but let's keep it a little small. I think 4 is a little bit too big a group, so let's do you 3 together and then 2 and 2. How's that? Okay? So you're going to take your pictures, your scenes. Yes. Really? Disregard the side. If you do, some of them are double-sided, but only just pay attention to the one that has a number. Forget the side that doesn't. Okay? That's just a mistake. You are going to take your scenes and arrange them to create a story. Now, a few things to keep in mind before you begin. First of all, you do not need to use all your cards. It's completely up to you however you want to create your story. So you could use some of them, you could use all of them. It's your call. Second of all, they do not need to be in any particular order. So even though they're numbered, that is not for the purpose of creating your story. So put them whatever order you choose. And third, and perhaps most relevant to our class tonight, is you can create any amount of narrative between the scenes. So you have a picture that's showing a scene in your story, but between your first and your second, there might be things happening. You can connect the scenes with your words, with language, with your imagination. So you can add and embellish what's going on in the actual pictures. Okay? And then once you have created your story, you may share it with the rest of us. Now, depending on how many people are in your group, you have more than one set of cards. You may create more than one story if you have the time and if you would like to. So,
Can we merge our cards and make one big story?
No.
No.
No, that's what I was just about to say. It's one story per set of cards, but you don't have to use them all, but still one per set of cards, and then you can make another one with your other set of cards. You have 3 sets in your group, so you could potentially make 3 stories if you'd like, and then choose whichever one you want to share. All right? So go ahead. Carolyn, you can join with Athena and Rivka.
And one last thing I was going to ask, how long do we have? Like, should we take our time, or do you want us to just put them out? You want to give us a timeline, 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
Let's 10, 15 minutes.
To create one, like just me, my story, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yeah, well, together. You could create more than one story if you like as well.
For 10 minutes?
Yeah. If you're finished earlier, then we could stop then too.
Yeah, I'm just putting it like this at the back.
We don't need to use all the cards, right?
Nope, you don't.
They're the ones that feel like a story to you.
Each set is exactly the same. Each set is the same, but you work together to create one story with one set, and then you work together to create another story with the other set. So it's one story per set, and you work together to do that.
And his story's strange. And asking for help. That's a good story.
He's inebriated.
Yeah, but I don't like that card.
He comes by and says, is that it?
Or was your card to
Yeah,
see if there's something you want to start a story with?
No, I need to change this. Those are the same guys. So he won't
I down. Oh, just
He's attacking the, oh, yeah.
Oh, he's playing.
Just
Oh,
at the
okay.
back.
Oh, oh yeah. I see. There's this
Okay,
here.
this is a lot of money. Are we supposed to work together to create the story?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
we are. We're not creating two stories.
No, you could create two stories, but each one together.
Oh,
It's a
all right.
collaboration.
Oh, all right. So what are you?
Out of it, he comes by. He's somebody different, right?
No, no, his is,
That's the same person.
his is.
Hi, Renia. Welcome. We're just beginning with a little workshop.
He comes all the way.
We're beginning with a little workshop.
And then
So
and so
let me give you, sure, you know what? You're welcome to bring a chair over here if you'd like. Yeah, absolutely. And this is for you.
and if you're one, we can.
Yeah, a pleasure.
If you want to.
This guy's
Raise
stops
the
to get
story,
a
we
drink.
can also do it. And from the other side, it would be a
That's the thing.
There's all the cards.
Say, look to where his.
They got so scared
Find it.
for the time.
Sees this guy resting on the tree.
Oh, he's seeing witnesses.
Renia will join your group, ladies, I
And
think.
he, like, so.
That works.
That's really
You'd rather pair? It's totally it's totally up to you. Either you can become one big group, or you can divide up into two.
Not to be like,
Sort of a bride, or like industry, or whatever.
Dynamics are changing as we go along here.
He took the money.
Mr. Rivka, you can allow you to explain to Renia the exercises.
This way, say, right?
I was thinking that there was this man who needed something from Hashem. So he stood on a mountain
Oh, okay, so
he
we each
called.
one have to create a story from both, no?
But nobody
once
answered.
I decided to order, you can write it. I'm not really good at writing.
Where does it go
Okay,
from
well
there?
then,
What's the idea?
We have to write a story based on these cards.
how are we gonna call him?
So we can put them in any order. We can tell any story we want. And we can have lots of words between the pictures.
And we didn't read it, so
He puts his money aside. When he gets up, his money is gone.
I don't know, it's worded.
Here, where we will go.
Someone who comes on a horse,
Yeah, stolen.
A night?
a knight?
I don't know the word, I don't know the word.
Cowboy,
Yeah, it's sort of.
I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah, it could be a barber on a horse.
I'm going to tell you a story and can end with
okay, so
something.
what's let's just say gentleman. Night? A night, okay, I guess a night. I guess so. So, the night, okay, the night.
No, I think he's as fast as he could on the back.
Proceeds
He's trying to be
quickly.
Okay, so let's start with the idea.
And we don't have to use all of them.
His horse
We can use only the ones we want.
discovers a river.
So this is yours.
No, that's yours. I've got my copies here, you've got your copies there. They're
Oh,
the
we're
same.
okay. Knight proceeds quickly on his horse and discovers a river
We have to do something.
where
Wait a sec, he's still the same guy.
he stops.
yes, yes.
He's the same guy.
This
Or
guy under the tree.
And he put it
It
aside.
looks like he has headphones on.
Suddenly,
Did you notice that?
he noticed.
Who's this guy?
Maybe that's not such a good start for a story. Let's try something else.
Having a dream.
This
see
old
what they
man,
have
he's an
here.
old man living by the tree.
Yes, yes.
He's
He
drinking
really, he put it aside.
by the tree.
Okay, so
This is
how about
okay.
this? This is
How about
how I
this?
see it, okay. Okay, go ahead.
and
Yeah, okay.
And he
Why?
feels,
There is-
what do you think?
That this guy writes up.
He feels
So I'm going,
surprised.
Can you take a rubber?
okay, by
Yeah.
a tree, he feels.
looks as if he just ate a shark.
Yeah.
Okay,
And he's thirsty, so he's drinking the water.
Notices that
And
there's
what
this
says,
guy here sleeping under the tree.
arrow?
It says,
okay, he feels threatened and with
His arrow, he
arrow, he
he attacks him.
he attacks.
This man sleeping, he fell asleep under him, giving him no chance to defend himself.
He attacks the elderly man.
had a dream.
Giving him no chance to defend himself.
Finish your story.
No? Haven't even started.
Take your time.
Okay, so wait a minute. So he says we're, and then interjected.
And I
So,
would be good.
if a man comes to a river,
With her imagination.
then,
Paper? I usually
yeah,
I know.
He's not
Tonight,
sure.
unfortunately.
if the water will be good.
Want to check? I have the microphone attached to me, but you're welcome to go and, yeah, maybe it is there.
So he tries it.
Perfect. Thank you.
He tries the water.
Okay, so you
Oh,
can't
he's trying
defend
to
yourself,
water
and then
and
what?
he will get poisoned if he dies.
It's,
We have our story. Or sorry,
You have your story?
simple story.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, that's one story, right?
Go ahead.
We have to do another one.
Well, he was.
If we want to.
Oh, exactly.
We don't have to. Oh, he's really good.
We just need to make one story?
You don't, there's nothing that you need to do. It's totally your call, however you feel.
If you want to try to put this in a different order.
It's hard enough to come up with one, right?
So I like him at the end somehow, I don't know why.
Inspiration. No inspiration.
Neither.
But I can't think fast. I need to go slowly, and I feel like I'm wondering
We can continue
I
our
don't
story.
like
It's
this
another
one.
so terrible.
I don't want
And take what really happened.
Or maybe
This guy
you
was
could get,
The same as you.
Yes.
She said that we can
I
add
thought that
things.
And
was
David.
So
different
he said that
stories.
he woke up in time and he
Okay.
started
And we can
running
use them in
himself.
any order,
But
and
you
we
see,
don't
he
have
He went
to
to the
use
top
all
of the
of them.
mountain
Oh,
At the same
and he
time.
started swimming for help.
oh, okay.
This
He woke up, where's one where you say?
She said that we can add things in between.
Yes.
Okay, he wakes up. So number one, then number
But here he
two,
found the money, but the guy's not.
Okay.
elderly
oh, maybe
man.
he killed.
Wakes up in time before he was attacked.
Wakes
Okay, so it's problematic.
in time, not
Why?
clear what.
But why?
Yeah, so what we're gonna do.
Runs
before he was a taxi.
Okay, before,
He was a taxi runs as fast as he could to the top of the mountain.
runs.
Okay, I have my picture in numerical order.
Calls for help?
Okay, a man comes, he's been traveling all day, and he comes to a river,
Okay.
all right? And he
Okay,
squats
give you
down.
5 more minutes and then we'll share the stories.
He's not sure if the river is sweet water or it's bad water. So he tries it. And it's good, so he drinks lots of it. And then
Everyone divided into 2 groups of 2, so it worked out well.
so he sits down for a nap.
2, 2, 2, 2. I know the dynamics kept shifting as people were joining in the middle of the workshop.
Yeah.
It all worked out well. Yeah, you can keep them. I don't need them back.
No,
If you'd like.
let's do it this way. So he drinks some water, and but I don't like that one. Kill somebody. So he takes off all his armor.
Is there a real version of the story?
Ah, that's a good question. Yes,
I really want to
but I'm not telling you yet what it is. First, I want to hear everyone else's stories.
Our story makes no sense.
You know, there's a Yiddish expression, "If a meise fragt man nicht kein kasha," is that you don't ask questions on a story. Stories don't have to make sense. They could be totally irrational and illogical, and that's what it was. That's how it happened. So you can ask a question. So that's what it is. So feel free to do it however.
Story I'm trying to figure out which one is that.
Not necessarily is it going to create the original story if you put it in numerical order, though.
And I guess for me,
Just to make it more
at
complicated.
night, it's kind of how would I put it or describe it? Like, if he sees a man, an elderly man at the foot of a tree, he's not going to feel threatened. So we kind of describe it in some way that I would think that that would be, you know.
And her baby.
But
Right. Well, I'm going to keep you all in suspense to see how the story develops.
yeah, how that could be.
Okay, we'll start
It
with
could be a
that.
wounded knight.
Could be. All right. How are we doing here, ladies? Anyone finished the story? You're finished yours? Okay. How many stories did you do in the end? One story?
What's next?
Awesome. Okay, great. Can't wait to hear it. Carolyn and Faina, how are you doing over there with the story? So. Okay, you can share what you have so far. Okay, let's.
Come back and make it house and bring banana or what? That's the next.
Okay, so ladies, leave your story how it is so far. Whatever it is great. There's no right or wrong. You're not getting marked for this. Graded, don't worry. And we will begin sharing the stories now. So, do we have a group that volunteers to share first?
No, I read it.
Now, ladies, when you share your story, please tell us the number of the scene that you're talking about so we could all follow along with our cards and see how your story flows. Okay? Don't rearrange your cards if you already made your story, but you could just, as a reference, you can see which scene is which. Whatever's out there. I'll have to let the manager.
Say,
Well, manager, no.
my class. They think better with their.
Okay, so we're going to hear from Gabrielle and Natalia.
I don't choose to.
Go ahead.
You tell it.
Or you could take turns.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
So our story starts with the knight that proceeds quickly
Which number scene is that?
with the 46,
Okay.
quickly on his horse, and he
Discovers a river.
he discovers a river on scene 98, and he stops for a drink, and suddenly he sees an elderly man on picture 88, and he feels threatened because of him on scene 28. And to protect himself on scene 75, he attacks the elderly man. And we also made a different end when on scene 28, the elderly man, he wakes up on time to protect himself from the attack. On scene 24, he starts running as fast as he could. And on scene 30, he gets on the top of a mountain and he starts screaming for help.
Great. I like that. Okay, thank you. Well done. Okay, should we just go around the table? Or Barbara, would you like to share?
Okay. Scene 30.
Scene 30, okay.
There's this wizard godlike guy standing on the mountain saying, I'm going to tell you a story. Scene 13. There's this shepherd taking his flock to the river to drink. He sees some money, but he leaves it there, thinking, it's not mine, must be someone else's. Then, this knight,
And scene 46.
in scene 46, comes riding quickly down this hill to get a drink. He's been busy all day. On scene 98, he's taking his drink. Does he see the money?
Yes,
He sees
he
the
sees
money
the
and
money
says,
and- oh,
I
money.
can have the money.
Yeah.
I got money. This is great. Just put it right beside me here. I'll take my drink.
Scene 59.
Scene's 59.
So
In the
50,
meantime-
59, we decided that scene 59, the old man is wearing a disguise, the old man who's up on the tree, he's wearing a disguise, he takes the money and he gives it to this poor family.
Oh.
Nice.
And then the knight comes back in 88 and he's wondering where did the money go? And he looks to the old man against the tree in 28, and in 75 he accuses him of taking the money, so he's attacking him. And the end is the wise man, scene 24, going, you see, don't make false conclusions.
I like how it's a story within a story.
Yeah.
That's very apropos tonight's class.
That's really good.
It's about a storyteller.
We must be inner Baal Shem Tovniks.
Wonderful.
Our Baal Shem Tovnik came out.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
okay, that was wonderful. Carolyn and Faina.
Do you want to tell your story?
You have to give it.
We didn't
You
give
make
it.
a story. Give it.
You want me to
Your
go first?
pronunciation
Well, we
is
have
better.
to. Yeah, but we didn't agree.
That's okay.
You want to begin with that one?
Yes,
Okay.
24.
Scene
24.
Yes. He's standing, an old man.
Different opinions.
He's standing on the peak of the mountain, and he saw everything what has happened around. And then he tells us he wants to tell an interesting story about a shepherd who was walking along the desert, or what is it?
Number 13.
The
The shepherd.
13, yes. And suddenly he saw with the money. packet with the money. He decided what to do, and one time he looked after his sheep. Then he saw a man maybe who will continue.
Scene 88.
88. He went to drink.
Where's your guy on the horse, though? Where's your guy? There he is.
Yes.
I think that one is.
Yes.
He's
And
coming
the
down,
Pierre,
right?
he's
What number
coming
is that?
down.
46?
Number 46. He's coming down the mountain. And this is the same guy.
Yes.
And
You never know.
he decided
Well, it
he
looks like
wanted to
same hat, same
drink.
spear.
He wanted to drink.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to rest, to drink. And to
So
rest
98 and then 28,
Yes.
drinking and resting,
To
okay?
to have a rest
Mm-hmm.
for a while. He's there. But this is another. Well, this is another guy because his dress is another.
We're talking like this right now. Storytelling.
It's not firm yet.
Okay,
Work in
Right,
progress.
okay, work in progress.
He's drinking, and here is the packet with money. What else can you say?
What was your version, Carolyn?
He saw.
My version was different from the start.
Uh-huh.
Sort of different. My version was first scene 46, the guy on the horse
Mm-hmm.
with the hat and the spear comes running down the hill. And then he's thirsty, so he stops to take a drink. Scene 98.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
So where
then-
did the money come from? Did he bring it with him?
Don't know, but I think he puts it down next to him. He had the money with him.
Okay.
He put it down next to him, just like he put his spear and his hat down while he had a drink.
More comfortable to drink that way.
He is.
That makes
And his
sense.
horse is somewhere else, obviously. And then
Why did he?
he got up and left, but he must have left the money behind by accident. He took his spear and he took his hat and he left, but he forgot the money. And then a little while later, the bag of money is just sitting there next to the river or the stream, and a shepherd comes along with his sheep, and he sees it.
Number 13.
And number 15. The shepherd looking is probably a very nice guy, but he picks up the money and takes it with him.
Uh-huh.
So the money's gone.
Okay.
Then the guy whose money it appears to have been, at least the guy who put it down on the ground in the first place, returns to the scene. And this is scene 88.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, oh my goodness, I left my bag of money here and now it's gone.
That's the question. That's 88, you said?
Question.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's the question mark on top of his head.
Yes. His question is, where is my money?
Mm-hmm.
So he looks around. He's very annoyed, and he looks around, and he sees scene 28, which is the old
Mm-hmm.
man sleeping under the tree. And he assumes that he's the one who stole the money.
Uh-huh.
So he's so upset and angry, and he's not a very nice guy. And he goes over and he kills him, the elderly man under the tree.
Scene 75.
Yes,
Mm.
75.
Uh-huh.
We know that he killed him because of the X's in the eyes,
Yes.
which I think mean death.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think I agree.
Observant
Wow.
details.
Yes.
Observant
Well done.
details.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you,
Now,
Faina.
just excuse me.
Oh, you had some more scenes still? Okay.
Where's
Okay.
59?
Couple
I
more.
don't know, under where's 59?
Somewhere in the background is scene 59.
We don't have to use all the cards.
And
No, I'm just
Right.
asking.
But they did.
this is an important card because I think this one reveals the true story that actually happened.
Ah, huh. What do you mean by the true story?
Or what Aura said.
Yeah, us.
somebody took the money. No, I think this is not a person in disguise. I think it's a real thief who stole the money from very poor people.
He's taking it,
That's very intriguing.
They're
Well,
taking it and the people are
or he's
bleeding.
giving it?
There's blood.
There's blood there.
I think
And they
he's
have a
taking
knife
it because
in
these
their
people
chest.
are looking very distressed to
They
the
have a
point of
knife
near
in their
death.
chest.
Well, they have the X's on
He
their eyes.
has the X in his eyes.
And the baby's crying.
The baby's crying. The thief, the guy with the mask,
But he's
doesn't
returning,
look
but
nice.
he's returning the money.
No.
You see? No?
Well, she's
But
saying
he's-
he's taking it.
It's
so
really a mystery that's still unsolved.
Still unsolved. Okay.
Why is that
Okay.
guy
All this, then we
drinking?
have Moses on the mountain.
Anyone else
First he's
think that
thinking-
feel that that's
and
Moses?
He says,
Natalia, do.
Yeah.
what is
What's
going
going on?
on with the people? The people are
Yes.
always having
I
problems.
recognize that as
Please
Moses.
help.
All right. Well done.
That's
And last but certainly not least.
Well, I
Very good.
came up with a story. we didn't.
You represent
A man who had lived a very long life and had never made any money was very upset with Hashem. And he went up on as high a mountain as he could find so he could have a talk with Hashem and find out why he didn't have a very good life. And he waited and he waited and he waited. And winter came and summer came and winter came, and finally with the second snowfall he got really annoyed and he said, okay, if you're not going to answer me, that's it. And he went down, back down off the mountain, and he found a tree and he sat under the tree and
So that's number
decided-
28? You've seen
oh,
28?
sorry, number
Okay.
28. And he decided, that's it, I'm not going to do anything else for Hashem. And he took off his hat and he took off his long robe and he just let his feet go bare. And his beard, he just let it go all yucky. It didn't have the nice points on it anymore. And he just sat there and he didn't do any good, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything for anybody, even though over beside him, and he knew it, there was a robber who took a knife and injured a lady with a baby, and her husband, who was drinking water behind her, didn't notice her either. But the man under the tree just didn't pay any attention. And along came the Yetzer Hara and said, ha, I gotcha, and killed him.
Which scene was that at
Oh,
the end?
sorry, number 75.
75. Aha.
75, which is 75.
Very nice. That had a different twist to it. It's very creative. Okay, that was wonderful. Now, somebody asked, as Gabrielle asked, does this actually make up a real story? Well, there isn't one, as you've all noticed, you can't say there's only one real story you can make out of it, since you all created wonderful stories with these cards. But the truth is that these scenes also make up a midrashic parable. And this parable is actually a story about storytelling. So let me present to you this midrashic parable.
Moses ascended to the summit of Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. He was granted a bird's eye view of the whole of human history. He saw the great men and women of all future generations and their achievements. But he was also pained to see the suffering of the righteous and the prosperity of the wicked. Show me the
Still
justice of
going
your
on.
ways, he pleaded to God. Show me how you run your world. Moses sees a grassy meadow with a stream of clear, sparkling water running through it. A knight approaches on horseback. The knight dismounts from his steed and crouches down to drink from the stream. As he does so, a small bag filled with gold coins falls from his belt. Unaware of his loss, he gets back on his horse and rides away. An hour passes. A young shepherd leads a small flock of sheep to drink from the stream, discovers the pouch, and is delighted at his good fortune. The shepherd and his flock depart. A weary old wayfarer arrives at the stream. He eats a few dry crusts of bread from his sack and refreshes himself with the stream's clear waters. He then leans against the tree and goes to sleep. The knight, having discovered his loss, races back to the stream. He searches the place where he kneeled to drink, but his money bag is nowhere to be found. The knight discovers the old man sleeping alongside the brook. He wakes up the old man and demands that he return his money. When the old man denies any knowledge of the knight's money, the knight beats the old man until he is dead. He searches the old man's clothes, but finds nothing. Mystified and disappointed, he rides away. Moses is beside himself. "God," he cries, "I ask to see the justice of your ways. What I see is an innocent man beaten to death, while an undeserving lad is awarded a small fortune." Another scene unfolds before Moses' eyes. A lame peasant walks, supported by a child. A robber attacks the peasant, murders him, and takes his money. A soldier observing the scene does nothing to intervene. Upon contemplating this last scene, Moses understood that he has just witnessed something that happened many years before the events he saw earlier, which holds the seeds of what was later to occur. The robber who murdered the young boy's father is the old man killed by the knight. The child is the shepherd boy. The knight is the soldier who stood by and failed to prevent the crime. So, the robber was justly punished for the murder he committed. The son of the peasant received the money that was unjustly taken from his father. And the knight who failed to do his duty was now compelled to make good the lost money and to punish the criminal.
Justice.
So this is really about like past lives or karma or really.
The process that you all went through, creating your story, is very similar to what Moses was experiencing when he questioned Hashem's ways. You all had a bunch of scenes, and it just looked like a random collection of scenes, some jumble of pictures. But as you began to assign a storyline to those scenes, meaning, significance emerged. Moses saw a jumble of chaotic scenes. He cannot figure out what the key to those scenes were. But as soon as a narrative began to emerge, all of a sudden he realized the significance and the meaning. And that is what storytelling is all about.
But you must say that the majority of people in the world are not connecting the dots like they were connected here. Like even us trying to make meaning, it's, we didn't know that the robber was the this and the, you know, I could look,
right.
We could look through our family history and realize that, you know, if you're beaten by your father in another life, perhaps, you know, you beat him, or I don't know. I don't think most people look at stories.
That's true.
Those eyes,
And Moshe didn't know this either till Hashem showed him the key. There's certain things we will never know.
Right.
But the point of the story is that
Or things aren't always what
that there's a narrative. And when we figure, there's a narrative in life, a narrative to everything. And when we could pinpoint it, when we figure it out, then all of a sudden there's meaning that emerges. And that is what literature does. whether it's fiction, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's journalism, whether it's a history book, a textbook, whatever it is, the author is creating a narrative out of raw material. It's giving significance to raw material, facts, events, people's lives, whatever it is, that's the raw material. The author is giving that significance through the author's power of imagination, through the author's power of insights. And this very same process is something that we go through all the time when we create the stories of our lives. This process of giving significance to the raw material and creating a narrative.
Do that all the time on the bus, watching strangers. Whoa, the stories are phenomenal.
The stories that you create. Right, and there's an example of creating a narrative using imagination. You see people, you see facts, together with our imagination, out comes a story. So let me ask you this.
But
Yeah.
behind all that, because there could be multiple stories for any set of raw material.
Yes?
However, underneath that is really to get to the truth. What is the truth of the matter? Like if this midrash is the truth, that you don't, everything that you see is not necessarily what is, that you have to look at it in a greater context of cause and effect and all sorts of other things. To really see the big picture, it's discovering, getting to that underlying truth is not always just making up a nice out of the story, as we just all do.
That's true, and that's a great point. But that sort of brings up a question of, is there only one significance to what happens?
True.
Is there?
Very true.
We're going to develop this. We'll speak about this soon.
Because
Okay.
in that point of view too, maybe the way one sees a story is also a reflection of where they're at.
What their experience is.
Yes.
You see, because Barbara and I decided
how
to
we
say
started
the shepherd
talking.
saw the money, but he was an honest guy and he left it there. Well, that isn't really what the midrash was, and you were the one who said he took it. So if there's no right or wrong, it's just interesting how someone would say, oh, he left it, and someone else would say he took it. That's almost a reflection of
Absolutely.
well, maybe our own hopes or our own truths or our own...
Absolutely. These are excellent points, and we're actually going to discuss this during tonight's class. So these are very good. Let's get back to them soon. So when it comes to the stories of our lives, what kinds of scenes make up the stories of our lives? Is it just one story? Or are there many stories? Who writes these stories?
We write them by experiencing them. They are written by the experiences of life. Life writes them.
What do you mean by
happens
life?
Well, what happens? All these things happen, and now we're talking about it or what have you, but most people don't have a book written or anything like that, but yet their story is evolving.
Okay, so a story consists of what happens to you in your life, you're saying?
Exactly.
Those are the scenes of your stories.
And really, and it's interesting how I'm seeing it now, it's interesting how, often we decide, oh, I know what that person's all about, and we make all these judgments and that sort of thing. Meanwhile, just this is an example of how all the different people can have a different interpretation of one's information, one's story.
Yep.
And how important it is not to make those kinds of judgments without, I guess that's one thing I did as a nurse. I always hesitated to get information that others provide and to go to the direct source if the patient was able to. Because that's where it really is, it has validity.
Or maybe every God creatures has its fate and has it chance to choose to what way to go. And then these puzzles we get together and
So you're saying our choice, our free choice makes up our stories. It's not just random things that happen to us, but we... So in that case, who writes your stories then, in that case?
Well, we do that.
So perhaps we write our stories.
Choices.
Do we write our stories, or does Hashem write our stories? Do our experiences write our stories?
I,
Rivka, what are you saying?
I think it's both of us.
You think it's both?
Yes, I also think both
Yes.
together.
Those together.
well, I've always felt that there's a blueprint of our soul. And,
So it would be destiny?
well, it isn't, well, that's where the two come in. It's only destiny, well, destiny means there's no choice, but it's just like, I sometimes think the urges we get are sort of like the blueprint of your soul is like a map of your life, but you can go with it or not go with it, you can resist it, you can...
Okay,
but that's-
great. These are all excellent,
Yeah.
excellent points. So let's begin to explore all this. This is really what storytelling is all about. Who writes our stories, what our stories are. Let's begin with defining, though, what exactly is a life story or stories. We have many, many stories. And the truth is, we are constantly, every day, every minute, every second, as I think Rivka mentioned, constantly creating narratives, creating stories. That is the way we understand and process what we experience. We create narratives about it. I'll take comments and questions in just a moment. So our narratives, our personal narratives, are really made up of two things. First, number one, we have the facts or the experiences. And number two, we have the meaning that we give to those facts, to those experiences, to those people that we meet, whatever it may be. So it's kind of like a connect the dots activity. You have the dots. Those are the facts. That's what's here. That's what's in your life. It's people you are involved with, experiences that you have, the weather, whatever it is. Those are the dots. And then through your imagination or through your insight or through your logic, you connect those dots and you create a narrative. You create your story. I'll give you just a silly example, but I'm sure you can think of millions. We do this, like Rivka said, we do this all the time. She does that every single day on the bus. So just a little example of how this may work. Okay, let's say I'm about to step out of my house and I see that it's raining outside. It's raining, that's a dot. That's a fact. It's raining. Now yesterday, I bought new rain boots. So right away I make the connection, it's raining today, I can wear my new rain boots. On the other hand, if it's raining outside, then I can't really do my errands because I'm taking the bus. So now I need to sort of rearrange my schedule because I scheduled my errands for today. I think I'm gonna have to do my errands tomorrow. And instead, perhaps I should do something inside today. Maybe I'll do some extra cooking and baking and put things in the freezer. So out of those facts, I have new boots, it's raining outside, and I need to do errands. I created a whole narrative. Today, I'm going to wear my new boots to work, and after work, I'm going to come home and I'm going to cook and bake. A little story. My logic, my insights. I don't know how much imagination was involved in this particular story. Together with the facts, okay, a little narrative. And we do this thousands and thousands of times, all the time. And we do this sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. We don't even realize that we're building these narratives, but that's how we process things. We are always building those narratives.
That's not necessarily the right thing. I don't know. I don't want to say right or wrong, but that's just the mind, I think. The mind.
Okay, so we're getting this coming up a lot, I see. Is there a right narrative, a wrong narrative, a preordained significance? Do we choose the significance? These are excellent questions. This is really the topic of tonight's class. So step by step, we're going to get there. All right? Now, this concept that we could create narratives, we create stories out of everything that happens to us, this is actually quite a mind-blowing concept. Why is that? So I'd like you ladies to please turn to text 4 on page 97. This is a text from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And the Rebbe says the following. The difference between the creator, Hashem, and a created thing, us, for example, is that the creator is an initiator and a giver, also known in Hebrew as a mashpia. And the created thing is a passive recipient. The created thing possesses no existence in and of itself and receives its entire existence from the creator. Now, because the idea of the giving of the Torah and the mitzvot is that the human should elevate itself to the level of the supernal one, so to speak. In other words, there are certain things that Hashem does that we try to emulate, us creations, try to emulate. It is therefore obvious that the significance of this elevation is that the human should be elevated to become an initiator and giver, as the supernal one is. So if the whole point of Torah and the mitzvot are to elevate us human beings, in what sense are we supposed to be elevated through the Torah and mitzvot? Not to remain a passive receiver, but to also become a creator, a giver, an initiator, just like Hashem. As in the saying of the sages, one becomes a partner with God in the work of creation, an initiator and giver, so to speak, in the work of creation. A partnership. We have a partnership with God in creating the world. But let me ask you this. Can a human being truly create something? Why not?
Well, yes, women create children.
Okay, so we have a yes and we have a no. So Rivka, first explain your no, and then Ora, you're going to explain your yes, please, if you don't mind. Okay, go ahead, Rivka.
God creates things, and we take the things he creates and mix them together to turn out a new relationship. But we don't create anything new. Ever.
So we're kind of recycling what's already here and creating new things out of what's here already.
Yes.
I hear you. Okay.
And by doing that,
Okay.
we try to improve the way things that God's created work together, and we try to improve the results of putting things together.
Okay. Good. All right, you say yes, a human being can truly create. Why is that?
Well, I just thought in terms of a man and a woman create a child. So that's a creation.
Why don't you agree?
Because a man and a woman take what's inside them, put them together, and they develop using materials around them, but they don't create anything.
Remember you told me yesterday, you said that on the moment of the conception, that's the only moment where men and women, we have like a godly power to create something. That's the only moment where we actually have a godly power. I don't know if it applies here, but maybe
I would think so. You see, because I mean, even though, now that we're talking, what I would actually come to say is, I think Hashem gives us raw materials. Like everything I am, if I believe it comes from God, was given to me. But I can create things with what was given to me.
But are they new things? So, Gabrielle, you're saying there is a moment when we have the power to create. Is that in terms of the physical body of the child, or is it in a spiritual sense?
I think it's spiritual sense. I don't think it's physical. No one can create something physical.
So we're talking about the soul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't feel there's a
I would say it's
separation.
reverse too. I would say you give the physical environment for the soul to come in, but the soul actually chooses where it's going to go.
And good blessing the
Okay, that's a whole other discussion about the soul. Okay, so let's put that on the side right now. But in terms of our ability to create, do you believe that we could, as humans, could create something that never before existed? Completely new.
Yes, because I think we can give a unique expression, even to something old. there's a uniqueness
Yes.
because of, it's like you were saying, you take the puzzle pieces and you rearrange them and you create a new design. The pieces may not be original, but somehow.
So the design is new.
uniqueness.
The pieces are not new, but the design is new.
Design is
The design is new.
Or
Okay.
sometimes even the pieces are new. Was there ever a me before? I don't know.
Ever a what?
A me before, like the pieces that make up me.
No,
Was
but
there
did you
ever-
create that?
So that's new. The pieces are new.
Yes, but who created those pieces?
Okay, okay. But with these pieces, I could create something. If not new, then I'd like the word unique.
Unique.
I
Okay.
don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
That's,
Okay. Good. Good. Carolyn, did you want to say something? No, it looked like you had something to say.
Yes, but only in partnership with Hashem. Only in partnership.
Okay, so only in partnership, good. But the definition of a partnership is that there has to be equal effort on both sides. So Hashem is creating something new. We also need to be doing something. What are we creating that's new? Could we be creating something new? You're right, there's a partnership,
Yes.
but in what sense?
I think so. I think it's
He
a-
gave us the power to do, and we do it. Like, if we don't, he don't give us the ability to do something, we can't do it.
Well, I think
put
it's
this
a it's a co-creation by
Co-creation.
co-creation by being like any art. It's a co-creation. Like if I was the ego, I'd say I did it, but I know the feeling of knowing it. That when it is through me, so I have a hand in it, but when it is through me and it really is not me totally, but I have a hand in it, then it can be a unique expression of something that comes from something much higher. And that is a co-creation to me because I'm the vehicle for it, but I'm not, it comes through me as a channel. So I would say that, I mean, words are very limited to express this kind of a thing. Like if somebody wants to say it's a black crystal, if it's white, well then you choose. But maybe it's neither black nor white. It's somewhere in the middle of all that that's a blend, and we call it gray.
Okay, okay. So what's interesting here is I'm hearing both you, Aura, and Barbara, you're talking about the element of creativity, that humans have the power to be creative, to create something unique, to innovate to innovate something, we have the powers, we're creative people, and that's true. Human beings have an innate power of creativity. Now, going back to the question, can a human being create something? So in a sense, Rivka, you have a very good point. I mean, we're talking about creating something physical. Even if you're creating a painting, well, the canvas and the colors, that all exists. You're just taking this color and that color and that color, and with your power of creativity, you're putting it together. So in terms of physical objects, can we create something new? Well, we kind of use the material that Hashem created. But
So this
But-
is something from nothing or
yes, yes. But there's a big but here, and this is sort of touching what you were saying, is that there is something that humans can create from scratch. And that is significance. Significance.
Wow.
Hashem creates all the raw materials. That's true, we cannot create a raw material. But all those raw materials are neutral when Hashem creates it. Then we people come along with our innate power of creativity, our uniqueness, and we give significance to those creations. That is our own contribution. That's where we become creators, with a significance. So,
By the
if
way
we
we
are...
put Hashem's pieces together.
or by the meaning we find in them.
by
Exactly.
giving them meaning.
Exactly, and well, let's speak about that.
But
Because, yes, what is that?
Can I go back a second, just to address what Rivka said? Because I was thinking something like Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. So he created something new that was never here before.
But what did he use to invent the telephone?
Why are you shaking your head no?
Because he didn't create it,
He was
he
inspired.
assembled it.
He had the inspiration. So let's say his inspiration was a divine spark, but he did indeed bring forth something new. Because you said, can we bring things new? So he was inspired.
Well, that's the age-old debate. Is it truly new, or is it just re-gluing or recycling of different materials that were already in the world, and he put them together in a new way?
But that's
That's the debate.
But that's true. But that is true. You know, could have been the time. There was enough awareness of physics. There was enough, right? So you're right.
Yeah. So there's different ways to look at it, but in terms of creating something totally new that never existed here before,
Probably.
No.
only significance.
Even wisdom.
Only significance. So
So the
if we're all
only thing we
storytellers,
create- Let me just clarify. The only thing then we create is we give significance to what is created.
yes, and
That's the
let's
only
explain.
creation.
But I think we need to explain this a little bit more. Still,
Yeah.
okay? So if we're all storytellers of our lives, we're constantly creating narratives. As human beings, we have that power not just to create a narrative, not just to create any old story, but to create a narrative of significance. To create a narrative of significance. What is a narrative of significance? What is that?
Something that demonstrates what God has created more clearly so that we can see it, we can touch it, we can work with it. In ways that haven't happened before.
Okay, so meaning
Like your
seeing things
example
as
of Alexander Graham Bell. He took metals and electricity and he put them together in a new way, but he didn't create new things to do that.
right. He found purpose and significance and opportunities in things that already existed.
Precisely.
Good. Okay, good. That's one idea. Another example of a narrative of significance would be, we can go through life just being passive receivers, as we read here, but the point is to become a creator. In other words, we can just, sit back and say, well, life gave me this, and life gave me that, and life gave me that, and poor me, and whatever, this is what I have, and I have no control, and I'm a victim, or whatever. Or we can be a creator. We can see what happens to us and look at them as opportunities. We can look at those things as purposeful, happened to me for a reason. What should I do with it? What should I learn from it? It's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to help somebody, whatever it may be. So am I a creative storyteller? Am I looking at what's happening in my life in terms of what can I do with it? What kind of opportunity does this present me? Or am I a passive storyteller? I had this experience, it happened to me, what could I do? I didn't have a choice. No, we could write our own stories.
What about when a story happens the way it does to me? I just open my mouth and out it falls.
So you could be channeling
I don't even
things.
think. It just, like, speaking particularly with children. Story, Rivka. So I open my mouth and out comes something that I never heard before. And I didn't really imagine before, but it's there. What is that?
I think that, gift.
I guess it's your power of imagination based on what you know in your life, the anchors, the dots, and then it emerges into a narrative.
Giving it significance.
You're giving a significance to what you know in your life. The significance that you're giving to it is through your power of imagination, because sometimes you do it through imagination, sometimes you do it through insights, through inference, through implication, whatever, logic, whatever it is. And this ability is unique to the human being, because other creations may be able to communicate, but only a human being can communicate something of significance. And when we do communicate something of significance, this in a sense makes us a partner. As you were saying, a partnership. Makes us a partner with Hashem in creation. Because Hashem creates what he creates, and we choose what kind of significance we want to give to those creations. And it's interesting, and this is going back to the question that everyone was raising, is that the significance that we assign to something is so unique to us as individuals. Right? How many times does it happen that a few people experience one event, And each one comes out with a different narrative, a different version or a different thing that touched them, or notice different details even, you didn't even notice that detail, right? Let's say you're at a concert with another few hundred people. Everyone experienced that differently. The same concert, but you have a different narrative.
And we even
So,
change it in ourselves.
is it-
It's one
yeah.
time it's this way, next time it's
That's true, that's true. And the question that begs to be asked here, which you already asked, is there one preordained narrative to what happened to life, to experiences? Is there one preordained significance? And it's up to us to try and get it right, or sometimes we get it wrong. Meaning, we all experienced, say, I experienced an experience with a few other people, and we have different versions, different narratives. Is only one of those right, and the others are a connect the dots gone wrong? No. For example, going back to the example I gave you before of creating a narrative that it's raining. Okay? Somebody else opens the door about to go out and sees that it's raining. Okay? Same fact. I saw the rain, she sees the rain. What does she say? Oh, I bought a new pair of suede shoes yesterday. Today's the perfect day to wear it. And you know what? I'm going to take advantage of the rain today. I'm going to do all my errands. Whoa. Okay, is that a case of whoops, wrong connect the dots there? Or is her narrative valid as well?
Well, until the rain, she had just that information. Once the rain appeared, the narrative had to change. Or,
Well, what if she usually rides a bike to work? But because it's raining, she's going to take the car. So maybe it's a perfect day for her to wear her suede shoes and do her errands because she has the car.
that's true.
So this is why the great minds or wise people said that we had to have a minimum of 2 witnesses.
Yes, yes, exactly. And this is the point that I want to develop through the rest of tonight's class. How you can have one experience and many stories.
But if there's only 2, there could be 2 entirely different interpretations, then what?
Okay, let's see. Let's see. This is exactly what we're going to develop now. So please turn to...
So I want to go back to the rain and the boots.
You know what, Ora? I see time is running and people have to leave. So let's go at the end. I'd be happy to go back to all questions, okay? Let's take a look at text 6. It's on page 100. This is a saying of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, Hasidic philosophy. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is one of his most famous teachings. Would anyone like to share it? Text 6.
Every single thing that a person sees or hears is a lesson in how to conduct oneself in the service of God.
Why is that? Okay, we're going to get to that soon. Why is that? Every single thing we see or hear is a lesson. A lesson on how to serve God, how to live life more meaningfully. So this is actually related to another fundamental teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the teaching of divine providence, hashgacha pratit. What is this teaching? Of course, everything that happens, God does for a reason. But it's even more than that. It's not just in the big things, it's also in the details. And in the details of the details. If a little leaf is blowing in the breeze, it's not just that the breeze was for a purpose. It's not just that the tree is moving for a purpose. It's even that little leaf is blowing for a purpose. Every detail of every detail that happens in this world is meaningful. So therefore, to apply that to us, every encounter we have, every little detail that you notice, every little whisper that you hear, anything that gets processed in your life, that you process, is for a purpose. So, the way you process an event, the narrative that you create down to the very last detail, is purposeful, is relevant to you, to your life. Otherwise, you would not have interpreted it like that. You wouldn't have created that narrative. That wouldn't have been the significance. You notice that detail and not another because that's what you need to hear for your life. Whereas your friend sitting next to you at the concert has a totally different narrative, had a totally different experience, was touched by something totally else, noticed completely different details. Why? Because she needed to notice that. That was purposeful for her. That's relevant to her life. So the same experience can mean different things to different people, and that's the way it should be. Because if you noticed it that way, it was for a purpose, it was meant for you. And if someone else noticed it a different way, it was for a purpose meant for her. Whatever narrative you create, that's the narrative you're supposed to create. And we're going to look at 2 biblical examples of this, starting with the story of Joseph and his brothers. Please turn to page 101. Okay, are you familiar? Anyone familiar with the story? It works out, our class is 2 weeks early. Exactly. Our class is 2 weeks early, so you might think, well, why, it's Rosh Chodesh society. But divine providence.
This was the parsha.
Our class may be 2 weeks early, but it's connected to the parsha that we just read. So there you go. Okay, so let's take a look at table 3.1. Okay, let's start with the actual story. So we start with, you have to follow the direction of the arrow. So we start on the left side, the top of the column. The brothers' jealousy is aroused by Jacob's preferential treatment of Joseph and by Joseph's retelling of his dreams of greatness and lordship over them. Okay? So far, so good? What happens next? Well, the brothers are jealous. They sell Joseph into slavery. Joseph is taken to Egypt. Story continues. After 13 years as a slave and prisoner, Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams and is appointed viceroy of Egypt. Okay. Then what happens? Joseph implements his plan of storing grain during the 7 years of plenty in preparation for the upcoming famine, thereby saving the entire region from starvation. Next, when Joseph's brothers come to Egypt to purchase grain, Joseph tests their loyalty to one another by accusing them of being spies, and later by attempting to keep Benjamin as a slave. What happens next? When the brothers refuse to abandon Benjamin, Joseph reveals his identity to them. End of story. What I just read to you, those boxes are the dots. They're the facts. And if you look closely, out of those facts, we could see 2 narratives. We have the narrative of the brothers, and then we have Joseph's narrative. Take a moment to look at your chart at the 2 different narratives that are emerging from the same series of events. What is the brothers' narrative? They made a mistake. Guilt, shame, excellence. That's the way they process these events. That's the way they experience these events. They made a mistake. They feel bad. They feel ashamed. They feel guilty. What's Joseph's narrative?
That it was a blessing, really, that he landed up in Egypt, he could save everybody, and it was really God's plan.
Good, exactly. The way Joseph processed all these very same events is that it's all part of a bigger plan. It's very positive. He was very accepting of it. He didn't look at it as a mistake. He looked at it as it was meant to happen. He didn't look at it as his, needing to blame his brothers that they're guilty and that they should be ashamed of something. He forgave them. He accepted what happened to them. Now, he saw the bigger picture, exactly. Now, which narrative is correct? Which is the real version, the real way to interpret these events? The way the brothers interpreted them, or the way Joseph interpreted them? You say Joseph. Okay, good. Anyone else?
Well,
You say both. Okay, you're right. You're right. Both narratives are correct. Because the brothers' narrative is right for them.
correct.
And Joseph's narrative is right for him. Meaning, the brothers have no right to just write off what they did as part of a bigger picture, just to throw off the blame.
Right.
They have a moral obligation to accept responsibility for what they did. We have free choice. When we make a wrong choice, we have to own up to it. We have to fix it.
Be accountable.
So if the brothers narrative is about they made a mistake, they feel guilty, they need to beg forgiveness, that's the narrative that's right for them. That is the significance they must attach to those events. If they don't attach that significance to those events, there's a problem. Then they're not creators. Then they're passive recipients. They're just throwing off the blame. This happened, it's our fault.
They're not creators.
Right?
That's the thing.
They're not creators. As opposed to Joseph. If Joseph takes that same narrative as his brothers, then he's being a victim. It's like, it happened to me. What could I do? I didn't have any choice. Poor me, I had such a hard life. If he views it the same way as his brothers. But is that the right narrative for him?
No.
Not really. If he wants to be a creator, if he wants to be an initiator, if he wants to give significance, if he wants a narrative of significance, then he has to look at those same events very, very differently. That they happened for a reason. That they're part of a bigger plan. So what is the purpose? What should he learn from it? He accepts, he forgives. At the same time, though, he recognizes that there's more than one way to look at the events because he validates the fact that his brothers feel bad, and he does forgive them. He accepts their apology, but it's not his narrative.
This is brilliant. I mean, seriously.
It's going on my calendar.
No, this is brilliant. You know, like you say, you know, to find your own, you know.
To find your own story.
To be empowered.
Yes.
Like, to really know that you can own your own perspective and your own.
Absolutely. Whatever narrative you come up with, that's the one that's right for you, as long as it's a narrative of significance.
That's the narrow answer.
Now, I'd like to look at one more example, because the example we just looked at with Joseph and his brothers is a case of how to interpret something that you experience, that happens to you. What kind of significance are you going to give to what you personally experience? In the second example, it's slightly different because it's a case of how to interpret or what kind of significance we give to something that happens to somebody else when we witness someone else's experience. And for this, we're going to look at Noach. You know, Noach and the flood and the ark, the famous Noach. Take a look at text 7, page 102. So this event takes place right after the flood. Noach and his family emerge from the ark, emerge from the teva, and guess what what's the first thing that Noach does?
Gets drunk.
No, not yet. Right. No, there's nothing. The world was destroyed. Okay, so he plants a vineyard. So this is what happens. You're right, Rivka, you're right. That was definitely the result. So and Noah began as a man of the soil. He planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and he became drunk. And he was exposed within his tent. And Ham, one of Noah's sons, saw the shame of his father. So what did he do? He told his two brothers outside. His two brothers, Shem and Yafes. What did his two brothers do? And Shem and Yafes took the garments. They placed it upon the shoulders of the both of them. They went backwards, and they covered the shame of their father. And their faces were backwards, and the shame of their father they did not see. One experience, two narratives. One set of facts. Noach was drunk. He was lying exposed in his tent. What are the two narratives? We have the Ham narrative, and we have the Shem and Yafes narrative. What was Ham's narrative? He was disgusted. Whoa, what a disgrace. He saw the shame of his father. He looked at it as shameful. What was Shem and Yafes' narrative?
They pretended they didn't see.
Okay, so their narrative was not discussed because they didn't notice the shame. So what was their narrative? It was definitely different than Ham.
We will take care of our father.
Yeah, let's do something. Let's help. Exactly. Now, which narrative is correct? Is there only one that's correct? Are they both correct? What's the story in this case?
One is judgment, one is understanding.
That's true. So in this case, is only one narrative correct?
No.
No, it's
No? No?
although what you were saying before, I just want to add, if we look at life experience, Ham was inside and went outside to tell his brothers. Whatever the experience for him was, he was actually at the scene of the crime.
Yes.
The others weren't. So they could choose to make another decision. So that was sort
True.
of part of it also.
Okay, that's a good point. Although they did go into the tent after. And the way they acted when they went into the tent was very different than Cham. And we're actually going to see that in a moment. There's a very important difference when they were in the tent.
So when they
So-
You needed both because the compassionate acts that the two brothers brought, what they did afterwards wouldn't have happened if the first.
Because he told them about it.
Yeah.
Okay, but Cham's narrative wasn't only about sharing the information.
That's true.
Oh, he shared his disgust.
It was the disgust.
It's the judgment. It's the judgment.
Okay, so the answer to that question is, depends how you look at it. On a very basic, simple level, black and white, yes, one reaction is right, one's positive, and one's negative. Judgmental, it's not good to be judgmental. You're helping, that's great. But on a deeper level, we can look at it a little bit differently. So for that, please take a look at text 8, page 104. Here's another teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, which is actually predicated on the teaching we had before. This is a great teaching. Yes, the Baal Shem Tov said, if you see anything negative in your fellow, it's like looking in a mirror. If your own face is dirty, this is what you see in the mirror, right? The mirror only reflects back what the reality in your situation is. If your face is dirty, that's what you see in the mirror. If your own face is clean, you won't see anything amiss in the mirror. So too, as you are, so you will see in your fellow. So this mirror effect actually ties into what we said before, the other teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that every single thing you see or experience is to teach you something. It's for a purpose. So too here. If you notice a flaw in somebody else, there's a reason. It's not for nothing. If you didn't need to see it, you would not have seen it. So if you did see it and you did notice it, it's for a purpose. It's there to teach something. The question is what? So one possibility is, as the Baal Shem Tov says in this teaching here, the reason you were shown it is because you needed to see a mirror. Because the same lack or deficiency, so to speak, that you're noticing in this person, you have in some form as well. And it doesn't have to be in the exact same form. It could be even in a very subtle form. So, for example, let's say, you witness a robbery and you think, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Does that mean you're a thief? Not necessarily. But if you're feeling judgmental about that robbery, perhaps in a subtle sense, you have the same trait. Maybe you're not so careful with other people's property, let's say. Maybe you borrow things, you forget to return it. Whatever it is. If you're feeling judgmental about it, the reason why you saw it is because it's a mirror. So it's for, the reason was for self-improvement. It's a wake-up call. I have it, so let me work on it. But, maybe there's another reason why I saw it. Maybe I saw this because I need to help. I was in the right place in the right time to witness that someone has this problem because maybe I need to do something about it. How do you know? If you witness something negative about another person, how do you know if it's a mirror for you, a wake-up call for you, or if it's because you're supposed to be helping? How do you know? And the key is Shem, Cham, and Yafes, sons of Noach. Let's go back to that narrative, to that text.
Judgment or action?
Good. Let's go back to the text 7. And this is what, Ora, you brought up before, and Carolyn as well, you were mentioning the difference between Cham and Shem and Yafes when they both entered the tent. What do we see about Cham in the verse? And Cham saw the shame of his father. As opposed to Cham and Yafes, what does it say about them? The exact opposite. The shame of their father they did not see. So here's the key. If your narrative is judgment, as Chums was. Chums was disgust. Then you're witnessing it as a mirror. If your narrative is as Shem and Yafes, your first reaction is, oh, I must do something to help, then that's why you witnessed it. There's no judgment. You're not judging, so you didn't see it as a mirror. You saw it because you need to help. So, is one narrative right, one narrative wrong? Not really.
Just have to respect.
Not really. Because Cham's narrative was right for him. And Shem and Yafes's narrative was right for them. Because let's be realistic. Cham was a totally different type of person than Shem and Yafes. He was living in a different reality. He was on a different page. So his narrative was right for him. He needed to see this for the purpose of a wake-up call. He needed to interpret it in a judgmental way so he could realize, why am I seeing this? Because I have the same problem. I have the same issue. It's an opportunity for self-improvement. That's the purpose in me seeing it. As opposed to Shem and Yafes living in a totally different reality. They weren't like Cham at all. They didn't have that issue at all. So their narrative was right for them. They're in the position to help.
Now there's another way I just was thinking you can look at it, and he told his two brothers outside. So I can look at that as he saw the shame of his father. Like you say, he could have done something. He could have gone and covered him up. He went and told his brothers. So to me, there's gossip also. Like, you know, he went. Or you could see that as a cry for help.
True.
He went to tell his brothers because he didn't know it.
And how do you know which it is?
Whatever you say. I looked at that and I said, well, he's the negative one and he's a gossip. He saw something negative and he ran and told his brothers. I mean,
So what makes you say that he's a gossip rather than he's calling his brothers to help him?
you know, reminded me of my sister.
But it's a very good point. Can anyone answer that? Why would you assume that he's a gossip rather than he's calling his brothers to help him?
I didn't see the gossip. But I could agree with. Well, he didn't know what to do. It got upset, and he just said,
Okay, but don't forget.
Well, I think it's because he saw the shame of his father. That's the key for me. He saw and went and told his brother. So he actually was spreading something not nice about his father to his brothers. That's sort of how my mind went.
Right. Right. If he
could
saw,
have just gone and put a coat over his dad, or
exactly. That is exactly the point. That first tells us he saw the shame of his father before he went to call his brothers.
Yeah.
So his reaction wasn't to help. His reaction was being judgmental. Was this disgust? If he was there to help, he would have done that in the first place.
And then he could have still told his brothers what had happened, but it would have been different.
Exactly.
I found Daddy drunk, and I
Exactly. It's a different narrative. It was a narrative that he needed.
Right.
So if Cham was going to create a narrative of significance in this case, he would look at it as an opportunity for self-improvement. When Shem and Yafes are creating a narrative of significance, in their case, the significance is an opportunity to help, to be kind.
Now, what if Cham never sees the significance? Because he could spend his whole life in disgust and gossiping to other people. Like,
Yes.
we're just hoping or assuming that.
That's an excellent question. And in that case, he would not be a creator. He would not be a creator of significance. He would be a passive, always pushing the blame, always removing himself from the story, has nothing to do with him.
Because he didn't know so.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So to sum up. Already, I know. To sum up, as we go through life, experiencing, meeting people, making connections, learning things, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of stories am I writing? What kind of narratives am I creating?
I'm going to think about it.
Am I being a creative storyteller? Am I being a creator? Am I conscious of injecting every experience I have with significance? Am I creating stories where I grow, where I have opportunities, where I notice opportunities for self-improvement? Are my stories of self-righteousness, or are they stories of humility? Are my stories stories of self-improvement, or are they stories of kindness, or both? And when we do create these types of narratives, we are doing something that's unique to the human being. We are expressing our innate powers of creativity. We're really, truly creating significance and partnering with Hashem in creating the world.
And that's tikkun.
And that's what storytelling is really all about. Are we creating a story of significance or not?
Thank you.
Welcome to the third class of the Art and Soul series. Tonight the focus is on the art of literature, or storytelling. As you know, I think most of you have been here for the past classes. Every lesson we focus on another one of the art forms, and we examine it, we explore it in the context of Jewish teachings and the relevance that it has to our daily lives. So tonight we will be doing that with literature, with storytelling. What is a story? What is a story?
Something that happens.
An event, something that happens, facts. Okay.
Yeah, that's true too, Barb. Barbara's whispering a mindset.
A mindset. Okay.
A mindset.
Oh, a mindset.
Sometimes
A
it could
mindset.
just be
Yes.
something
Yes.
you're telling yourself that's not true.
Like a baba mindset.
A baba mindset.
Yes, sometimes there's a lot of imagination involved in our stories, and we will discuss that tonight. That's a good point. Yes. Okay, so that's what we're going to be exploring. And we're going to begin our exploration of this, of what is a story, through a workshop, a storytelling workshop. Okay, so I am going to hand each of you an envelope that contains 9 picture cards. Each one is numbered. Okay, each envelope has the same cards, but not necessarily the same order. Okay, pass this down.
Smart.
Now we are.
One for you, one for you.
Let's divide up into 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we have lots. To 2 groups. So we'll do 3 and 3. Okay. Okay.
And we can have lots of words between the pictures.
And we can read it.
He puts his money aside. When he gets up, his money's gone.
I don't know this word.
Here, where we're gonna go.
Someone who comes on a horse,
Yeah, stolen.
A knight.
a knight?
I don't know the word. I don't know the word.
Cowboy.
Yeah, it's sort of.
I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah, it could be a farmer on a horse.
I'm going to tell you a story and can end with
A gentleman. Let's just say a gentleman comes on a horse.
Knight?
A knight. Okay. I guess so.
So,
The knight.
I think he's as fast as he could on the back.
He
Proceeds
he's trying
quickly.
Okay, so let's start with
the idea
And we don't have to use all of them.
His horse
We can use only the ones we want.
discovers a river, which is
This is yours.
No, that's yours. I've got my copies here. You've got your copies there. They're the
Or,
same.
okay, knight proceeds quickly on his horse and discovers a river
we have to do.
where
Wait a sec, he's still the same
he
guy.
stops.
He's the same guy.
This guy under the tree.
and he put it aside.
Looks like he has headphones on.
suddenly
You notice
He noticed.
Who's this guy?
Maybe that's not such a good start on the story. Let's try something else.
Having a dream.
Old man, he's an old man sleeping by the tree.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he really, he put aside.
By the tree.
No, go there.
Okay, so
This is
how about
okay.
this?
This
How
is
about
how I
this?
see it. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
And
Yeah,
you're gonna say,
And he
right.
feels,
There is
what do you think?
that this is my rights up.
Story if you have the time and if you would like to. So
Can we merge our
it's-
cards and make one big story?
no.
No.
No, that's what I was actually just about to say. It's
Oh,
one
weird.
story per set of cards, but you don't have to use them all, but still one per set of cards, and then you can make another one with your other set of cards. You have 3 sets in your group, so you could potentially make 3 stories if you'd like, and then choose whichever one you want to share. All right, so go ahead. Carolyn, you can join with Thina and Rivka.
He looks like Moses. Yeah.
And one last thing I was going to ask, how long do we have? Like, should we take our time, or do you want us to just put them? You want to give us a timeline? 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
Let's 10, 15 minutes.
To create one, like just me, my story, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yeah, well, together. You could create more than one story if you'd like as well.
For 10 minutes?
Yeah. If you're finished earlier, then
I think that's
we could stop then too.
Yeah, I'm just putting, oh, this is the back.
We don't need to use all the cards, right?
Nope, you don't.
For the ones that feel like a story to you.
I was drinking.
Each set is exactly the same. Each set is the same, but you work together to create one story with one set, and then you work together to create another story with the other set. So it's one story per set, and you work together to do that.
And he started screaming and asking for help. That's a good story.
He's inebriated.
Yeah, but I don't like that card.
He comes by and says, is that it?
What was your cards and
Yeah,
see if there's something you want to start a story with.
No,
What's
I
he
need
do?
to change. I need to change this because those are the same guys. So
Are they all- oh, just,
he's attacking the old guy.
Well, yes,
oh,
right.
he's playing,
Just
oh,
at the
okay.
back.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see there's this
Okay.
here.
This is what I want to do.
So, Barbara, maybe just for this workshop, I'll ask you to come to this side. Just for the workshop, we'll divide it to 2 groups, even groups. Oh, well, maybe not so even. Okay, you might as well stay there. Carolyn can join this side, it doesn't matter. Okay, so what I'm going to have you ladies do in this workshop, you know what, in that case, let's divide into groups of 2. It's still not going to work
2 for
anyways.
6? No.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's,
It's not hot yet. so
but
we
let's
can-
keep it a little small. I think 4 is a little bit too big a group, so let's do you 3 together and then 2 and 2. How's that? Okay. So you're going to take your pictures, your scenes. Yes. Really? Disregard the side. If you do, some of them are double-sided, but only just pay attention to the one that has a number. Forget the side that doesn't. Okay, that's just a mistake. You are going to take your scenes and arrange them to create a story. Now, a few things to keep in mind before you begin. First of all, you do not need to use all your cards. It's completely up to you however you want to create your story. So you could use some of them, you could use all of them. It's your call. Second of all, they do not need to be in any particular order. So even though they're numbered, that is not for the purpose of creating your story. So put them out whatever order you choose. And third, and perhaps most relevant to our class tonight, is you can create any amount of narrative between the scenes. So you have a picture that's showing a scene in your story, but between your first and your second, there might be things happening. You can connect the scenes with your words, with language, with your imagination. So you can add and embellish what's going on in the actual pictures. Okay? And then once you have created your story, you may share it with the rest of us. Now, depending on how many people are in your group, you have more than one set of cards. You may create more than one.
Are we supposed to work together to create the story?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
we are. We're not
Hello.
creating two stories.
No, you could create two stories, but each one together.
Oh,
It's a
all right.
collaboration.
Oh, all right. So what are you
Out
getting?
of it, he comes from.
He's somebody different, right?
No,
He's- That's the same person.
Hi, Renia. Welcome. We're just beginning with a little workshop.
He comes all the way.
We're beginning with a little workshop.
And then
So
and so
let me give you, sure, you know what? You're welcome to bring a chair over here if you'd like. Yeah, absolutely. And this is for you.
Can hear from this.
and if you're one, we can.
Yeah,
No, not like it. Okay.
a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Or if you want to.
This guy stops to get a drink.
And from the other side of the river,
That's the thing.
there's all the cars.
To look to where it's.
They got so scared
Find it.
at the time.
He sees this guy resting on the tree.
Oh, he sees, witnesses.
Renia will join your group, ladies. I
And
think
he, like, so
that works.
that's great.
You want? You'd rather pair? It's totally how. It's totally up to you. Either you can become one big group, or you can divide up into two.
Not to be like,
Sort of a bride, or like, give this to me, or whatever, pay, or whatever.
Dynamics are changing as we go along here. Mr. Rivka, you could allow you to explain to Renia the exercises.
Okay.
This way so far.
I was thinking that there was this man who needed something from Hashem. So he stood on a mountain
Oh,
and
okay, so
he
each one
called,
have to create a story from both of them?
but nobody
once
answered.
I decided to order, you can use it. I'm not really good at that.
Where does it go
Okay,
from
well
there?
then,
So what's the idea?
We have to write a story based on these cards.
how are we gonna call them or
So
name them?
we can put them in any order. We can tell any story we want.